Alrighty. Well, I think it may be an idea to talk about a certain person, parody maker, who's got a bit of attention lately with something, and I think it's probably worthy mentioning a few ideas and throwing my 2 cents in because that's what I do. Yeah. As some of you may know, or some of you found out that, I'd never sort of stick by people, including friends as such. I stick by principles. And, more recently, a well-known parody maker has, sort of felt a bit of a burn. Must admit, I've seen a parody I made go up on his channel and no permission, no credit given. And I thought, could have at least given me credit in the description, but no. And I sort of haven't watched him a great deal since then. Sort of interesting story that's sort of come out. Haven't worked for 5 years due to sickness. But I can't get a job now that I'm looking for jobs. And you sort of think, how long were you sick for and when did you start, or did you start looking for jobs after 5 years of sickness? How long have you been looking for these jobs for, Okay, I take it on face value the guy was sick, and these things happen, And, but then he turns around and said he hadn't taken any benefits. A lot of you may miss the part where he said he was sick because it was mentioned very quickly. Like I never watched it directly off his channel. I watched a repost that someone else put up. But nobody has to give out their medical details, and a lot of times you don't want to fucking know. I understand that, and I've heard this before quite a number of times, that if you haven't worked for a few years, people don't want to employ you. They probably assume you've lost motivation, or they've got this idea in their head, this assumption that if you haven't worked for a few years, you must be a bum, and you've avoided working. I don't want to hear that somebody's been sick for 5 years, but they've also been looking for a job that same 5 years. But then again, there's certain things that happen. People get back problems and then they can't do labour jobs, so then they're technically sick, but then they keep trying to look for, desk jobs that don't need the use of your back as much, or whatever. But dude, you haven't taken benefits for 5 years? What have you just been like burning through all your savings? In a house, paying for a wife and kids for 5 years? Shit, dude. While some of you may be a little bit funny on people taking welfare, this is what welfare's made for. If you're sick, get on the damn disability pension. There's a pension here that's not exactly the disability pension, or it may be a form of the disability pension, but it's for long-term sickness. Don't just sort of sit there and just sort of, keep burning through your savings And to be quite honest, if you want to get welfare here, you can't have savings, pretty much. No more than a couple $1,000. Literally 1,250, which is around about ballpark 900 US for a single person, or 2,500, I think it is, for a couple, which is ballpark 1,800 US. And that's all you can have, which is why I used to keep getting my paycheck out every single week and try deliberately to have no money in the bank. Now, on all this property business, I've been putting money back in the bank, fairly decent amount back in the bank. But anyway, you can put yourself in a position where you can jump through all the hoops without a problem. And from what I've been told by British people I know, it's a lot, because there's shitloads of British immigrants over here, it's a lot easier to get on welfare and stay on welfare over there. Over here, they've got a fucking shitstorm of a system to try and push people off it. And there's times, every few years, they have an election. Oh, what do we got to do? They actually deliberately push legitimate disabled people onto unemployment. And often that backfires. But they do it every few years. It's just the way they work with all the little political axe grinding. But this is the thing, dude. Like I know you got people like the ones I went to school with, haven't fucking worked for 20 years. They basically, worked a few months of their life. One of my best friends at school, he worked 6 months in the place that his brother was working at. They made golf carts there or some shit. His brother got him the job there. He's there for 6 months. Then he blundered and fucked around in university as long as he could to avoid getting any work. He ended up with like 14 computer qualifications. I'm not fucking joking. Then the dude, all right down to flipping Pixar-style animation and everything. Then the dude ended up working as a computer technician for a school, at which point he was there for about 2 years and met his girlfriend, who was a teacher, who suffers from panic attacks. And, the two of them ended up living in a caravan, like a camper trailer, in their parents' backyard. Holy shit. The dude's done like 2 years and 6 months work, and he's the same. Well, he's 37. He's a little bit older than me. He's 37 years old. 2 years and 6 months. That's it. And, his father was on invalid pension, and magically he just sort of ended up with the exact same problem his father had, regardless, bad knees, arthritis, early arthritis, regardless of the fact that his father was a fat cunt and he was as thin as a rake, I can't do a desk job. Oh, bad knees. Dude, you're sitting in front of a computer. How bad your knee's going to be? But some of these people, this is people I went to school with, they just sort of dropped out and they mooched off welfare with bad knees while they're only ever sitting in an office chair anyway. How would your life be going? Living in a fucking camper trailer in your parents' backyard with your girlfriend who has panic attacks. I mean, that right there, if I was in that situation, I'd have a fucking panic attack right there. Fuck me, what a dismal life. But some of these people, they decide they're going to latch on to welfare and stay on there. That's not what welfare is made for, but it is made for people who are sick for several years straight, and don't feel guilty about taking welfare when you legitimately have a reason, because this is what this shit was set up for. Now, they could piss all this money on foreign wars or fucking chasing Afghanis around in Hummers or God knows what they fucking waste their money on. I'm not saying the British waste their money on that, but, let's face it, I'm sure there's that much money pissing out the back door for so many years, funding other EU countries before Brexit, and now you're still not getting out. Fuck me. Governments are rippers for wasting money. I've got a cousin who's been in the Department of Justice for 12 years or probably more. And he says what he sees in Department of Justice, 90% of it is just pure fucking waste. There's not one iota of worthwhile spending in that 90% that the public sees any use of. 10% of that spending gives them something. That's probably 10 times over, 10-fold retail price, but they get something from that 10%. The other 90% just gets fucking wasted. Don't feel bad about token welfare, but it's a bit like I'm seeing these shows on TV about the drought. You know, farmers say, oh, I've got to sell these sheep, oh, I can't do it, oh, I can't, this, that, They fumble and they bumble and they talk to some professional who is a planner and can map out the future and everything like that and make a plan for them. And this person that helps them make a plan out that they all agreed to, that they all said sounds fantastic, that they said they were going to go ahead with, the planner comes back a year later and they haven't done a fucking thing. They're running out of money, they're running out of feed, the sheep are looking half starved and they still haven't sold any of them. Because they just can't, It's a bad situation and they have to make hard choices, but they never make these hard choices. And then it just gets worse, in case it already wasn't fucked enough. I feel, in many ways, that he has done exactly that. It's not e-begging to ask for work, but I'll tell you right now, as I've learnt after, well, shall we say, it's at least 5 years now on YouTube, that you ain't going to sell anything on YouTube. And I'm not trying to sell shit on YouTube, but I've looked at other people who had 80,000 plus subscribers who couldn't even sell 25 shirts. You know who I'm talking about. In the fairy meadow, where skies are blue. You know who I'm talking about. Anyway, that's probably the best singing I've done in the last 3 years, so relish that. But this is the thing, if you can have, like, you're cruising closely towards a 6-figure fucking subscriber and you can't move a couple of fucking shirts, you know, it's not easy to sell things on YouTube, and I'm not saying that you haven't got any work from YouTube, because I gather a certain transgender Californian has got you doing some work. Fuck that. But long and short of it is, I know you got to try any attempt that you got to try, but so many people I have seen have tried to sell stuff on YouTube and gone flat on their face. And I won't say you'll find work. You won't find work on YouTube, because you have found some, but it may not be a super successful avenue, just like some e-beggars selling shirts isn't as successful as even I would have suspected. It's just, I'm certain for sure that if I decided that I wanted to sell something, no one's fucking buying. Not with 1,500 subscribers, not even with 15,000, and probably fuck all worth a jack shit even if I had 150,000 subscribers. You know, there's no harm in asking though, there's no harm in asking, but, you know, don't expect a shit ton of stuff. And I could be wrong, but, you know, it's one of these things that don't expect a shit ton of stuff to come from YouTube. No matter how many subs you've got, you know, it's not always as rosy as you may think when the chips are down to ask for help on YouTube and get a great deal. Although it sounds like you've got some, which is better than nothing. You know, something is better than nothing. But it's one of these things, you know, asking for work, no problems. Asking for a loan, yeah, I'm a man who keeps my word. Well, I used to think that about my father until 2010 when there were so many things that he was going to pay for fixing that house up. I'm going to give you a new weatherboard. I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you that. In the end, we had a bit of an argument about it. 7 failed. I'm going to give you this as later. Followed a week and a half, 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the track by, how dare you ask for that, you entitled little shit, when he'd actually promised to pay for these things. And he'd come out, not with me asking, he'd just come out on his own and said, I want to pay for something in this house. In the end, we had an argument about it, and I said, well, you said you'd pay for something, what will you pay for then? Because every time I've asked for what you said you'd pay for, you turn around and crack the shits and, I don't know where you get this sense of entitlement from, blah, blah. So I said, well, last thing, water tank, we'll pay for the water tank. Week and a half later, I come back to him. Okay, yeah, well, I'm ready for the water tank. And my mum turns around and says, oh, so how are you thinking of paying for that? Oh, fuck me. 10 days beforehand, you said you were going to pay for it. After we argued about all the things you reneged on. They didn't have to do fucking shit. It just pissed me off that 7 or 8 things later, they never kept their word on any of it. Same goes for loaning people money. For some people. Other people, you know, they may trust you more, but yeah, it's a bit of a sticky one to loan someone money who doesn't have a job. When's it coming back? It gets a little bit sticky. But it gets really, really fucking sticky when you outright ask for donations, because it's very hard to... There's 2 things that backfire really badly on all us anti-e-beggars. You can call us trolls, you can call us scam busters, you can call us anti-e-beggars. You know what I'm talking about. It's very hard to do 2 things. First of all, ask for donations after you slammed other people who have done the exact same thing for that exact same reason. Now, we know they were going to spend it on 60 Minutes in the Lisa Marie with Janelle. We understand that. Or, you know, little fucking Tater Tot and all his beer. Or Mikey, who's probably spending it on weed, no, on fucking living it up for free Mikey. Considering how many brain cells he's already lost, he's obviously gone through a fair bit of that shit in his day. But anyways, you've really hit the hypocrite point if you're asking for donations. And, you know, there's 2 things that'll backfire amongst us crowd of trolls, anti-e-beggars, scam busters, whatever you want to call us. One of them is bagging out and pointing out e-beggars and then asking for donations or e-begging ourselves. The other one is giving money to e-beggars, which I know quite well and I've seen quite well backfires on, I think, at least 2 people straight up, where it's backfired on them. And I think it may actually be more like 5 or 6 people it's backfired on, but this is one of these things, you know. Yeah, those 2 things are very hard, giving money to e-beggars and asking for donations yourself, especially if you ask from online, which is almost e-begging, or it just outright is e-begging. You know, I understand, and this is what many Americans may not understand, and I've been told this by former British workmates, and I think one guy was Scottish actually. Up in these areas, it's not America. So you got to realise that one of the really speaking, I mean, you know, Dutch, you can say the Dutch East India Company was the birthplace of globalism, but the biggest symbol that I can think of as globalism was the British Empire itself. Now, you may not know this, but back in the 1700s, you know, you're talking about tariffs. I talk about them on my main channel. I think they're a good move, you know. Every other bastard's pulling tariffs on everyone else, including America, including us in Australia, and they just do. Even fucking from working in the radiator industry, bulldozer tariffs in fucking Thailand. I'm not joking. Yeah, Thailand wants Thai-made bulldozers, or at least 75% of the parts thereof. And if they're less than 75% Thai parts in that bulldozer, you face a tariff, and it's like a 25% or higher tariff. It's a fair thump of a tariff on the cost of that bulldozer. Who the fuck is Thailand with, as far as I know, no iron ore, no coal, a tropical island nation, to be trying to block foreign, like not develop, there's parts of the north of Thailand where they don't even have roads, it's just mud tracks, and you've got to go with 4x4 or you just won't even get half a mile, and they're putting import tariffs on bulldozers. The whole world's got tariffs. But guess what? Back in the 1700s, there was so much Indian clothing coming into England in the 1700s that people were, who were in the clothing industry in England, were tearing Indian clothes off people once they recognised those Indian patterns on the clothes. They would literally fucking tear it off your back because they were so shitty that you'd given an Indian a job over them a job, because a lot of them were, well, out of work and damn near starving. But this is the thing. England has been a real prime example of globalisation with the British Empire. Not just the last fucking 20, 30 years. We're talking fucking couple of 100 years. And I'm told that once you get a job in England, it's very hard to get jobs there. Like, there's just so fucking few jobs that come up that, you know, and all these British people I've come across, they're a bit like my dad's aunts and uncles. They had the same job for 20 years, for 40 years. And you say to these British people, so why do you work at Toyota for 20 years? Why do you work at this other place for 40 years? Didn't you get sick of it? There's no other jobs. I had that job. I hung on to it because if I let go of it, I wasn't fucking necessarily getting anything else. Unlike Australia, where people change jobs like every fucking 6 months, more or less. Fucking hell, I've been at my job for like 20 months and I'm like, boss number 4's gone. Now we're getting another one. They're interviewing them today. I've seen at least 3 of them brought around by a big boss from Sydney. You know, and this is the thing. It's your welfare money is more over there, and there's people who sit on welfare a lot longer. But the point is that jobs just ain't like they are under a Trump administration in the US, or like it is here in Australia. 26 years straight with no recession, no shit. You know, and the jobs are going fairly well. A lot of it off the back of Chinese investment in real estate, but and that government infrastructure investment as well, which is, well, let's face it, a lot of what pays my wage is government infrastructure investment, and not just roads either. But anyways, it's one of these things, you know, like even during the GFC, we never actually got to recession during the GFC. You couldn't fucking make this shit up. We went to a 0.2% growth rate, but we never actually had a recession during the GFC. You couldn't believe it, but that's Australia. And the way the jobs are going in America under the Trump administration, well, that's America. You know, and England, well, not so good. So just keep that in mind. I'm not necessarily defending the guy. I really think he should have made a move earlier to use welfare for what it was made for. You know, and it's the first time I've heard of anyone asking for a loan, honestly, on YouTube. You know, it's either buy my stuff or just give me money for free, but you know, all the same, I think it's one of these things, you know, like you've got to, like these drought-ridden farmers, you've got to, it's a hard decision, and it may not be something you want to do, but there comes a time where, and you might not have expected the sickness to drag on for 5 years, but there comes a time when you got to make decisions for the long term. If you've got to bite the bullet now, and if they're hard decisions now, you've got to do it now, because it will fester and get fucking worse, and sometimes extremely worse, like he's found out. But anyways, that's sort of my take on it all. I wish I'm not saying I necessarily like the dude or hate the dude, and there's not just him, but there's a lot of people who I'd like to give a job to, just to fucking help them out. But I'm not in a position to give anyone a job, and this whole sewing thing's cruised into the ground, and now I'm looking more at real estate investments. But one of these things, I've worked with so many people who I think, fucking hell, if I had a business, I would employ them. And, I'm not in a position to do that because I don't have a business. But, I hope he does find some work, and I know, I do know what he's going through at times, because I've been 9 months I was looking for work, and I remember, whacking out 47 resumes, and I got a day a week that dribbled down to a day a fortnight that was actually not even a full day. It was like 5 hours a fortnight, for them then to tell me exactly when I had to have welfare office appointment, boom, boom, boom. And I couldn't believe it. How the fuck does someone with as much experience and as many licenses as me have to go to 47 joints and still only end up with a day a week and then a day a fortnight? Fucking unbelievable. But this is what happens in sleepy towns, and then you give up on all that shit and you just got to go to the capital, where you get offered 2 jobs in 3 days. And, but anyway, that's just my 2 bob on all that shit. It is a dicey thing. It was an e-begging, but oh fuck, if you ever cross that line of e-begging, or even donating to e-beggars, and people who have done it, they turn around and say, what the fuck just happened? Everyone turned on me. Yeah, dude, that's because your friends, and you included, have discouraged people for the longest time against e-begging. And as he stated, he does believe that people should, work for what they get as opposed to just be given it. But England is not America, and it's not Australia, and the jobs are just fucking terrible. And the costs, I've heard from, Sri Lankans, and no, it wasn't Sri Lankan, it was Pakistani, that go over to England, from Pakistan, thinking they're going to make a go of it. And there's such a narrow amount between what you get paid and what your rent and living costs are. It's fucking unbelievable. And if you watch enough shows and look into some of these things of people who, there's a couple there with Gordon Ramsay, both couples worked at least 12 hours a day. Can you imagine both you and your wife working 12 hours a day to keep the fucking ball rolling? What the fuck is this? They go from Pakistan to England, or wherever the fuck to England, hoping for a better life, where they're running like a dog, with costs that are 2 to 3-fold what Australia is, and a minimum wage that's fucking not much above half what Australia is. Holy shit! It's not great, So I just thought I'd whack that out there, because I know that, and I've been told it by enough people who have lived in England or been born and raised and worked in England, that it sort of may not be so obvious to other Americans and Australians. So, it might be to Australians who know as many British as I've known, but not so much to Americans. And, some Americans have lived in areas, I'm sure old TM has seen some fucking broke-up situations down in Kentucky there at times. I gather he has. Seen places that are worse than his town, and work's dried up at his town and at times. And he tells me everybody gets into doing scrap metal at that point. You know, but and scrap metal prices always better in America than here for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, that's all of it going to China. But anyway, that's my 2 cents worth and all that.